Yes Have Some podcast is brought to you by Carnivorous Creations, your one-stop shop for all of your proton pack building needs. If you're in the market for a proton pack, head to carnivorouscreations.com. That's carnivorous with a K. You're going to find aluminum motherboards, resin parts, fiberglass shells, and a whole lot more. Find them on Facebook at Carnivorous Creations or head straight to carnivorouscreations.com, remember carnivorous with a K, and get started on an authentic, screen-accurate proton pack.
Everything's under control. Situation normal.
I don't want to grow up. Do you want some?
Jurassic Park. Now playing at theaters everywhere.
Ecto goggles with Ecto Bomber, Neutron Blaster, and Water Zapper, each sold separately.
From the corner penthouse of Spook Central all the way to Star Killer Base, this is Yes Have Some podcast.
Do I? Yes, have some. Yes, have some.
You know, they told me you people were conceited douchebags.
The only place in the multiverse where you can love the book, hate the movie, but still buy all the toys.
I'm afraid you're just too darn loud.
I'm not looking for a friend. I'm looking for a Jedi Master.
A what?
Please remember to hold on to your butts and get ready to get stressed. With your hosts, Craig Goldberg, Abigail Gardner, and Jacob Walsh.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Yes Have Some podcast. My name is Craig Goldberg. Thank you so much for joining us. Abby and Jake have the night off. I'm flying solo, and I'm talking with friend of the podcast, Rob Barbieri. You probably know him on Instagram as Bobby 80's. He is an avid toy collector, huge into vintage Ghostbusters, Kenner toys. Just a good guy. He knows a lot about toys. He's dropping knowledge, but most of all, we're going to hear his story. He came into possession of the original Real Ghostbusters pilot. He found it on film. It was released on Ghostbusters Day this year on Ghostbusters.com. It was a big deal. Everybody was talking about it. And we wanted Rob to come on and tell his story. How did he find the reel? What made him take 5 months out of his life to restore it? We're talking 5,500 frames of individual JPEGs that he painstakingly did himself to bring it back to its original glory, and he partnered with Sony to release it on Ghostbusters Day on Ghostbusters.com. So we covered that and a whole lot more. We're talking Mattel, we're talking Jurassic World, we're talking Hasbro, we're talking Kenner, Holy Grails, vintage finds. We do a little bit of complaining, we do a little bit of stress. It's a lot of fun. So before we get going with that, I do want to let you know, if you want to find Yes Have Some on social media, it's going to be at YHS Podcast, Instagram and Twitter, Facebook.com/YesHaveSomeCast, and don't forget to join Yes Have Some Group Therapy, which is our official discussion group. And don't forget to subscribe to Yes Have Some on iTunes or whatever podcast app you use. And if you like what you hear on Yes Have Some, don't forget to leave us a review. It helps us more than you know. Okay, on to our discussion with Rob. Here we go. All right, we are here with Rob Barbieri, best known as Bobby 80's from Instagram. And I guess that's where, welcome to the Yes Have Some podcast, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've amassed like a pretty good following on Instagram over the last couple of years, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's only been, I would say probably 3 to 4 years, and it's been pretty crazy. It's been steadily growing, and now it just passed 15,000 about a few months ago.
That's awesome. Do you do now? You've got a private. I guess it's not a private, but you have a Facebook group, Bobby's Toy Chest. That's kind of where you do a lot of your, your discussions. People get in there, talk about toys, talk about show off their collections and stuff. Do you have a lot of fun doing that? I mean, obviously, you're taking. Some people just collect, right? So some people just have their collections. Maybe they keep it private, but you really like sharing kind of all your treasures because you've taken it to a different level, and I want to get into all that. But do you enjoy kind of interacting with everybody?
I love the interaction. I mean, reading the comments and mostly the shock and awe of people. When they say like, "Oh my God, I had that," or "Oh my God, I had no idea that existed." I get kind of like an archaeologist kind of like feeling when I'm like, "Oh, look what I found," kind of thing. Because a lot of it too is stuff that I never knew existed, or it's something that I was hunting for a long time and I finally was able to acquire it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of people that are just collectors, and they're very closeted. They're very, to themselves. And I'm just not that way. I mean, I like to be able to show things and, show things that they listen. This is out there. And, if you're into RoboCop or if you're into Ghostbusters, here's something that you may not have known that is out there. And if you're collecting, good luck and hope you find it.
Yeah. How long? So when did you get it's kind of one of those questions. Like people always ask me, like, how long have you been collecting toys? And it's like, well, I never stopped buying toys. Like I'm 34. There's never been a time in my life where I wasn't buying and displaying toys in some form or fashion. But there is usually some separation between like I was a kid who had a shit ton of Ghostbusters, and now I'm an adult who's like building the collection. So how long have you been kind of doing the second part?
Well, just like you said, I mean, like I grew up, I'm an only child, so I had a lot of crap as a kid. and so, I mean, whatever to shut me up, my parents like, here you go. And back then, it was a lot of, toys I had from different lines. And if it had a cartoon or movie based off of it, it was something I had. And I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s when I had toys, that were just here you go. A lot of it was broken along the way, mostly because I like to reverse engineer stuff. I was like, how the hell does this thing work?
Yeah.
But the problem was I could never figure out how to put it back together. So
yeah, it's funny that you bring that. Like I have these very specific memories of like having garage sales. Like this thing happened to me when I was, I was huge into Ghostbusters, huge into Ninja Turtles, like all the standard stuff. I was G.I. Joe, Transformers, Masters of the Universe was all just like that 1 or 2 years before, I was kind of hitting that key age.
Right.
But I like have these very specific memories of like my interests transitioning, got really into like sports, and like I was replacing, Ghostbusters with Michael Jordan or whatever. And I remember like selling all of my toys at garage sales to buy like basketball cards. And when I think about that stuff, it's so painful. Like my original Police Academy, HQ playset. I specifically remember being like, I don't want this. Get rid of it. $5. And it's just like it's so painful.
I honestly, I have one of those stories, but I didn't have the willpower to let it go, and I still have it to this day. Even though I beat the shit out of it as a kid, right. And I have restored it since to the best of my abilities. But it was my original Kenner Ghostbusters Ecto 1 car. Okay. I beat the crap out of the windshield. I was trying to, I don't know, I was a violent kid. I won't lie. I was like trying to like recreate like a car crash scene. Okay. So I beat the hell out of the windshield.
Oh wow, that's cool. You trying to get like some screen accurate Kenner, RGB. I like that.
Yeah, but to re-answer your question a little bit further, like, so I had a lot of stuff as a kid, and whatever didn't get broken along the way, my dad would, as I got older, he would slowly like either Goodwill it or, Salvation Army it, or just literally just throw it out, and without even telling me. And so it wasn't until after college that I started, getting to eBay and, realizing, oh crap, I used to have all this stuff. Where is it? And Dad, where is it? Oh, I threw that out a long time ago. I'm like, oh crap. And so my early 20s, I'm out of college and I'm hitting the real world, and I'm just kind of like, I need something to cheer me up a little bit here. And so I hit like that nostalgic phase where I started recollecting my old stuff, and then it transitioned into, okay, I got what I used to have. Now I remember all these old toy commercials. I always wanted this, but now, my parents didn't buy it for me then. I have the money now, so I got the stuff I always wanted, and then it turned into stuff that just caught my eye along the way, and then I dove into freaking prototypes, dude. I don't recommend it.
Oh yeah, you've got some amazing prototypes, and like that's kind of like the next level of collecting, right? So because a lot of these figure lines, especially from the late 80s, early 90s, they were pretty extensive, but there's only so many figures and variations of figures that you can buy. And then and I think that's kind of where you went. So you started getting the prototypes, and now you buy a lot of the marketing materials and the signs, and it just kind of, because you want to keep, like, I guess I don't want to speak for you, but you just want to keep the collection going and find things that you, like you said earlier, that you didn't even know existed.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you're never done. I mean, a collector's work is never done. And because I collect so many, my focus isn't just Ghostbusters. It's Ninja Turtles, and then it goes into the random stuff like Crash Dummies. You would have no idea that Crash Dummies has such a vast merchandise line, and then it goes into the obscure stuff of Kenner, like RoboCop or Robin Hood.
Right.
Like you mentioned, Police Academy. I mean, these toy lines did not last long, you know?
Right.
But because, I remember them either because they're based off of movies or cartoons, and I grew up with it. That was my era, where the late 80s, early 90s, that's what I was growing up with in the peak of my childhood. And I had a lot of these toys too. So when I went back, I'm recollecting all this stuff, and networking has become a big thing. Like you mentioned with my Instagram page and my Bobby's Toy Chest page on Facebook. I network with a lot of people and going to toy shows, and I'm meeting people that I used to know online, and meeting face to face, and that's where you get a lot of the good stuff. I mean, I know I have a lot of Ohio buddies, and that's Kenner's backyard, and so that's where I get a lot of resources for prototypes and marketing material, and it's never ending, because there's stuff that's out there that I could never tell you existed, because stuff happens behind closed doors. Right. There's almost like a black market for. Right. I'm not even joking. There's stuff that you and I could probably never, even if we combine our collections and combine our fortune, we could never dream of buying some of this stuff. It's just that's you talk about next level. This is beyond level.
Right. Goes to the next. And that's the thing we were kind of talking. We touched on earlier, like the private. Closeted collectors. You see a lot of that with people who have these like amazing collections of like movie props and like screen used memorabilia, and it's always like some unassuming guy who's like a dentist who has this man cave and lives in the middle of nowhere, Texas, and you're like, oh my god, you have like you've got you have a proton pack, you've Winston's proton pack, or you have
screen used something
you've got Arnold's rifle from T2. Like, why aren't you showing this off? Do you think that, like, as a collector, well, let me backtrack, because you were talking about eBay a little bit earlier, and I'm always fascinated with people's stories about getting back into toys. I remember that, like, my eBay account I started in 1998. I was probably in 9th grade, and I was collecting a lot of wrestling figures then. But I remember going and finding like real Ghostbusters figures, and I bought, the original Slimer and the Bad to the Bone Ghost, in nice packaging, good condition, and just getting like, these at the time $15-$20, like, and I thought it was expensive then. How have you seen, the craze kind of grow? Because it feels like toy collecting right now is much more mainstream and a lot bigger than it was maybe 5 or 10 years ago.
I have seen a huge rise in what things go for these days. And just like you said, $15-$20 might have seemed like a lot back in the day, like early 2000s. And I've heard a lot of stories, too, about people who have prototypes. Even though people have expensive prototypes, it doesn't mean they spent a lot on them. In the early 2000s, people weren't looking for that crap. So you could have gotten stuff, for pennies on the dollar. And the person themselves might not be rich, and that's one thing you got to remember. Someone just bought like a $2,000, prototype figure of, RoboCop or Beetlejuice or Terminator, or wrestling, and it's like, holy crap, they must be rich. No, what they did was they were there at the right time, and what they did was they sold something that they got for like $25, and they sold it for $1,000, and then they did the same thing for something else, and now they have play money.
Right.
It's not even their money, it's something that it's just there. Right.
And it's weird too, because like if you didn't know, like if let's say you're just like a kind of your everyday toy collector, maybe you go to some toy shows or Comic Cons or whatever, you come across like a prototype figure of something like in a bin, you might not even know it. If you might just think it's some weird figure or something that just wasn't painted, and unless you kind of know what you're looking for, I think that's one of the most interesting things about collecting is you really you got to arm yourself with a lot of knowledge before going into buying something, unless you just have an unbelievable amount of expendable income where it just doesn't matter. But like I'm constantly, because like I think we've talked about this before. When you go to flea markets and toy shows, like sometimes you can get great deals, and sometimes it's like kind of like eye roll territory with what people are asking for. Even like pretty common stuff. So that's kind of my PSA to the collecting world is always like, be knowledgeable, like know what you're looking for, know what it's worth, and don't get ripped off thinking that you got a great deal on something and you just spent like $40 for a common Beetlejuice figure or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have a great story actually. When I used to live up in Connecticut, I was born and raised up in Connecticut, and and I used to go to this place called I forget what it was called, Crystal Peak Mall.
Okay.
And I think it's near Brantford and near the coast. And basically it's a normal mall, but it has a vintage toy chest, toy shop in it. And it has a lot of variety. I used to go in there because it had a lot of variety of vintage toys there. And they had what I think – this is one thing that I wish a lot of vintage toy shops would do. They would have a miscellaneous bin, like a junk bin of loose figures, where it's like buy 2 for $4, buy 5 figures for $10. The more you buy, the more you save, kind of thing. And that's how I found a unpainted first shot of, and of course the things that I get lucky for, it's for stuff that no one cares about. Okay. And it's worthless unless you really find that one guy that collects James Bond Jr. I don't know if you remember that cartoon from back in the day.
Oh, dude, that was a great toy line. Like that was like, that was one of those like probably didn't last very long, but like I remember. Did the car come with a figure? I might be
No, it didn't. It didn't come with a figure, but it was an awesome car, though, right?
Yeah, and the packaging was beautiful, like those big, bold colors. Like, yeah, you can't really beat that.
I was talking to someone else, Christopher McLeod, because I was telling you we were doing like a Jurassic Park podcast, and we were talking about how packaging art is a lost art these days.
100%. It breaks my heart because as far as modern figure collecting it goes. Like the new Jurassic World line is pretty good as far as like a modern, line of figures. But
absolutely.
But all the packaging is just kind of, it's not what you want.
Just say it's half-assed.
It's half-assed, and the big dinosaurs aren't even behind plastic bubbles, and the vehicles are kind of in strapped in with plastic, and yeah. Well,
it's half a box. It's opened, basically.
Right.
And but you're right. Either it's especially I've seen it with newer Power Ranger toys like the Zords. Yep. Before you had this awesome artwork, or blow up picture of the toy on the front with this awesome like logos and bolts and lightning bolts and graphics and stuff. But nowadays I went by Walmart and I saw these Zords, and the entire front of the box is clear cellophane.
Yep.
I'm like, okay.
It's weird. You would think like from a marketing perspective and in the way that like kind of people's minds work that it's just like a lost art, like you said. Like you would think that maybe commissioning original artwork for these for the packaging would be part of the toy buying experience. Maybe they have a ton of research that says like nobody gives a fuck or something, but for my money, I want to get something with some awesome original artwork. And it's usually because the old stuff, like we were talking yesterday about the real Ghostbusters, the Fright Features figures. The artwork on the cards are just, it's so fun. And like just seeing that, not even looking at the toy, just looking at the packaging of the toy brings me right back to the aisles of Toys R Us in 1988 or 1989. And I don't know if kids 20 years from now are going to be like, remember that Zord that was just falling out of the box or had a cracked plastic window and,
I weep for the future because I don't think they're going to have the same kind of feeling that we have when we look back at those old boxes because, right. I mean, not to mention the box art, but also just the sheer cheapness of these toys, like with the Zords and with Playmates Ninja Turtles. I mean, when was the last time you saw a toy come with a sticker kit?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, everything is just like the base color is, you know, is like, let's say like there's a red Zord, the plastic is red. That's it, done deal. You know, and there's no detail, there's no paint, there's no stickers. I'm like, really? What the hell is this? There's no, I don't know.
And it's weird too because some of the stuff that you see on the shelves that might be a little bit more of a premium product, maybe like a Star Wars Black Series, you still see a lot of quality control issues with those types of figures, and then they just pile up on the shelves. It feels like nobody's actually buying them. It's just kind of based on observation. Like I know Hasbro's reporting losses last quarter, and that a lot of that has to do with Star Wars. And but I really do think like the Jurassic World line that Mattel has out right now is one of the better modern figure lines that I've seen in a long time. Much better than what Hasbro did a couple of years ago, at least.
To agree with you, this is how I agree with you with the Jurassic World 2 toys, because I didn't really care for the Jurassic 1 World toys that Hasbro did 2 years ago. Between the packaging and the toys themselves, I just didn't care for them. But what Mattel has done this past year, I put those toys on the same shelf as the original Kenner toys.
Okay.
Because to me, they hold up true to the point where I feel like I can put them together.
Right.
You know? And I love the detail. I love the little bit of action that you can do with them. You basically push onto their back, and like the Carnosaurus or Carnotaurus, whatever his name is, you know, his whole head flips forward and his jaw bites. Or with the Stegosaurus, you push on one of his fins and his tail whips. It's just an awesome little addition.
It's a cool feature, and then like the packaging on the Indoraptor is really great. It's a cool looking figure, and then the Mosasaurus, you know, the shark like creature.
Oh yeah,
from
the sea creature. Yeah,
the sea creature. That's like that feels like one of the old Kenner toys. It's rubber and it's very detailed, and they just did a good job with it. There's a ton of variety, and then you've got all the little figures that come with, you know, smaller dinosaurs or whatever. It's just I'll say this: we're Ghostbusters fans. The Matty Collector line from Mattel was pretty good. I mean, I really enjoyed collecting those figures, but that was still more of a premium product. Dismissing all thoughts and opinions about the last Ghostbusters movie, just from the toy line in general, like that was a shitty line of figure. Like that was a botched. That just wasn't good.
Dude, they were on clearance before the movie was done in its theater run.
Right. And like even like forget the Ghostbusters, just like looking at the Ghost figures, it just felt kind of like uninspired, and it bummed me out because
absolutely.
I thought, you know, what Mattel did with the Matty Collector line was overall pretty good.
Dude, I'll tell you this. I love the Matty Collector line. It's, for one thing, they did like a combo. You got a Ghostbuster with a ghost, and just like kind of like what Kenner did. I mean, that was great. And I thought that the reason why I love the Matty Collector line, besides the detail, it's that I can't stand. And I'm not speaking for everyone, but I can't stand the Diamond Select figures of Ghostbusters. I can't do it. The Diamond Select figures are bigger, and you would think that there would be more detail, but I think there's too much detail. I can't handle that chest torso articulation.
Yeah, that's kind of a common complaint with Diamond Select in general. They've got the weird chests. It's just kind of like a gash in the middle of the figure's chest.
Exactly.
It's kind of weird, yeah.
But what bothers me the most between, I think Mattel did better head sculpts, personally. I think Ray is a little bit better in Diamond Select, and Vigo is a little bit better in Diamond Select, but the rest of them, I'm happy with the Mattel's head sculpts. But at the same time, though, you can't tell me that Mattel, who did a smaller scale figure, you can't tell me that Diamond Select can't do the same thing as far as translucent pieces.
Right. Some of the paint jobs are kind of out there.
I mean, even Egon even with those small glasses, Egon's Mattel glasses had lenses, for God's sake.
Right.
the wands, the proton streams and the hoses, the leg hoses, all translucent. You know,
my biggest complaint about the Diamond Select figures is they don't stand up. You can't. I mean, even on the stands, they don't really stand up.
They don't.
And it's frustrating.
You've seen. Here's the thing. I have a display in my Ghostbuster room. I have a Ghostbuster room. You know, I have a house full of collectibles, but there's one room that's pretty much just Ghostbusters. And this is how I display my Ghostbusters room. This is my centerpiece. I love Diamond Select for their diorama, okay? Mm-hmm. For the rooftop diorama. I have the rooftop diorama with Mattel Ghostbusters.
That's a good idea.
Because I think the scaling is better, in my opinion.
Right.
The rooftop is big. It looks bigger with those smaller Mattel figures.
Right.
And then I have NECA, Gozer, and Terror Dogs on there.
Okay, so it's like a combo. You're taking the best of what the lines had to offer.
Absolutely. Everyone has something to offer the franchise. I just don't agree with everything that they do.
Right. Yeah. As far as the I've had the Diamond Select figures multiple times. Like, I'm such a weirdo. Like, I'll buy them all, then I'll get sick of them and sell them, and then rebuy them. It's just weird collector stuff. But I thought the Terror Dogs that Diamond Select did were okay. They're not as good as the NECA ones, obviously.
Oh, no.
Not really even close. But, yeah, as far as the new line, I haven't gotten any of the new ones. I think the Vigo looks pretty good. From what I've seen, the Janosch with Baby Oscar. Like, those are kind of fun things that, you know, we've never had a Janosch figure, so I'm going to get a Janosch figure. But I'm interested in what your thoughts are on, as we build up to the reason why you're on tonight.
Yes. We'll get there. We'll get there. 3 hours later, I'm like, okay, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Tell me about Ewok Village. What do you think of the images you've seen of the new Real Ghostbusters figures that Diamond Select's doing? I have mixed feelings. I didn't care for how, because we've only seen photos of them. Some things might change between now and the release, maybe.
Right.
But I love Slimer's face, okay? But I hate that he still has hulking arms, like the movie version did.
Okay.
Like Slimer's arms, movie and cartoon, he has very frail, scrawny arms.
Right.
You know?
Right. The arms on that Diamond Select Slimer are pretty out there.
Yeah, but I'm just being really picky here, because some people are like.
I mean, here's anybody who's going to listen to this, like, this is not for the this is for the hardcore toy fan. We're getting in deep right now.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are people out there that collect, and they will do anything to buy anything that says Ghostbusters or whatever line they collect. They're happy to have it in their collection, and more power to them. Me, I have to be a little more critical or picky, is because I hope someday someone listens to this and be like, you know what, I expect more from you, kind of thing.
Okay.
You know, like if Diamond Select is listening, you know, you guys are doing great, but there's almost like there's a few things that you just kind of do a little bit of a tweak here or there, or Playmates. I mean, I hate how there's always so many freaking Ninja Turtle gimmick toys.
Yeah.
But we can't have more villain characters made, you know?
Right. Yeah. So it's hard to like it. So I kind of compare it to movies. Like, the reason why people are so hard on the DC movies is because we watch these Marvel movies and we see what can be done. So
exactly.
Like, if you look at toys, like, look at what NECA's doing. Like, they're killing it with everything they do with the properties they have. They're pretty much putting out affordable, really well done figures. Like all the NECA Ultimate figures, the Ninja Turtles figures they're doing, like, they're showing that you can have a price point that's affordable and have a really good looking toy. You don't have to have a $200 hot toy to have something that looks really great.
Absolutely. So
you get a little bit bummed out when you go to the store and you get excited about that new Peter Venkman figure, and his face is, whatever they did with that. It's pretty weird looking.
Yeah, absolutely. So to go back to Diamond Select, I mean, I'm excited that Real Ghostbusters is making a comeback, but honestly, I'm not that excited because I don't think it's going to go any further than that. I think we're gonna get the 4 or 5 figures, and I think they're gonna be done with it. I don't know if Wave 3 is gonna come out because here's the thing. I want more villains that Kenner didn't give us. You know what I mean?
Like the ones from the show, basically.
Absolutely. I've had firsthand contact with people that worked on at Kenner and at Deke, and they basically didn't talk to each other, basically. And so it's a shame because Kenner has a thing about they've always been had a thing like with Star Wars where they did things that were not in the movie, but their mentality was it's there just right off camera, you know?
Right. Yeah, I've read that before.
Which is cool. It's an expansion of the line and the idea and the universe of it, which is cool. And I'm cool with whatever Kenner did as far as figures go, like with the haunted humans or whatever, or the monster line. But you can't tell me that. I know it takes a long time between creating a toy, the concept, to actually making it.
Right.
But still, Ghostbusters was out for 7 years. So even though you didn't talk with Deke to get a heads up on what's going to be in the cartoon, you can't tell me that once the Boogeyman aired on Saturday morning cartoons,
or the Sandman or
the
Sam Hain,
Sam Hain, you can't tell me that it wouldn't have been a good idea to make a figure, even though it would be 2 years later down the line. You know,
right?
I mean, come on,
kids would have wanted. I've got mixed feelings about it because to me, part of the charm of the original Kenner line is that it's just kind of its own thing. And like to me, I love when I see like artwork depicted based on the Kenner line of those ghosts, like Granny Ghost or Bad to the Bone or Tombstone Tackle or whatever. But yeah, that's why I've always been an advocate for when Mattel was doing the Masters of the Universe classics. To me, it felt like such a no-brainer to try to do the same thing with real Ghostbusters, but also incorporate, all the additional ghosts and monsters from the show that we didn't see in the original line. To me, now, again, I say that knowing that there are weird legal and licensing things that could get in the way of that. But do you remember near the end of the Maddie run, they announced they were going to do a real Ghostbusters line, and it just never happened. I was frustrated by that.
I never heard that announcement, but Maddie lost me with their very dumb Ecto 1 ad.
We've touched on it like here and there on the podcast over the years, but I don't know if we've ever gone in depth. Yeah, tell me your thoughts on.
Okay, so they had a thing where it's like, okay, we want to do an Ecto 1 car for the Maddie movie figures, and it'll be electronic. It'll do all these cool things that
it'll really roll.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but the problem is, we're not sure. Basically, they were trying to say they weren't confident it would sell. Give me a freaking break.
Right.
And so they wanted people to pre-order it, and if it hit the certain mark, kind of like what Hasbro just did with the sail barge for Star Wars.
Yep.
Which did actually work that time. But with Maddie, I pre-ordered. I contributed because otherwise it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
And they didn't hit the mark, and they didn't do it. But then, like 2 months later, this is what really aggravated me. 2 months later, I go to Toys R Us, and I buy a Mattel 60s version of the Batmobile.
Oh, yeah, I have that. Yep.
Same fucking scale. All right. Same company for $25, $30. I forget what it was, but it was affordable. It was a hollow shell on wheels.
Yep.
And I'll spend the extra $40 if it'll come with electronics. If this was an Ecto 1, right. It's the same damn scale. And you can't tell me that you can, even if, let's put it this way, I would have bought the Ecto 1 even if it didn't have electronics.
Right. I think I have a theory about this. So if you remember, like they announced it, I think at San Diego Comic-Con. What was that guy's name? The toy guru, Scott, whatever his name was?
Yeah, the toy guru. Yeah.
They announced it at San Diego Comic-Con, and they said this is going to be a crowdfunding campaign, and we're going to give everybody 2 months to get their pre-orders in. And then like a couple days later, they reduced the time frame like substantially to like less than 20 days or something. And my theory has always been that they knew like like when companies do this kind of stuff, like when Hasbro did their crowdfunding for the sail barge, like they had to have they had to have data telling them that more than likely they were going to hit that number, which they ended up almost doubling it. I feel like Mattel did that as a way to kill the line and be like, hey, we want to keep going, but there's not enough support for it, so therefore we're just not going to make any more Matty Collector figures. Yeah, they couldn't even give us a prototype. They gave us a freaking piece of cardboard. Yeah, it was so weird. I remember being so bummed about that because I had been a supporter of the line. Like, I had the PKE meter, and I had, I'd been ordering the figures every month, and it got to the point where they were starting to do a lot of, like, they did, Peter, Ray, and Egon, and then it was like Courtroom, Peter, Ray, and Egon, and then Lab Coat. So they were kind of doing the same thing where maybe they thought, they just had to keep releasing different versions of the actual Ghostbusters to keep the sales up or whatever. But that always rubbed me the wrong way because I completely agree with you. They could have done a $65 or $70 Ecto-1 and put it in stores, and I think that it would have sold just fine. It would have, even if it was just Toys R Us. I mean, who cares? It would have sold, but the real Ghostbusters, even though they did even another dumb decision, in my opinion, the retro style real Ghostbusters figures, the Mego style. The Migos, yeah. Yeah, even though I didn't like those, and in my head I was like, why are you doing a 1970s style action figure for a line that was popular? You know where I'm going with that. Oh, yeah. But those sold really well. Like, those became hard to find at some point in Toys R Us. I love them I love and hate them for two reasons. I love them because, if they were, because Kenner was supposed to come out with something like that, and they didn't. Okay. So it's kind of like nice to have something, but they were supposed to be 12-inch scale, kind of like Star Wars dolls. Okay. But with clothing for the jumpsuits. What bugs me, and this goes back to like Playmates, with like they give us all this turtle crap, gimmick crap, but they don't give us actual villains. Right. So it's like missing the mark a little bit there. What rubs me the wrong way is that they gave movie version proton packs with the cartoon color scheme. Yep. I mean, just weird stuff. What happened? What? Why? It's weird stuff, and that's the like. There's a lot of controversy about Star Wars right now, and even like removing yourself from the movies, like the world of Star Wars collecting is pretty intense. People are very opinionated. Say what you want, like you feel like the people that work at Hasbro are probably Star Wars fans, or whoever's working on the line has a deep familiarity with what the characters look like, what the characters' accessories are. There's research being done. A lot of the times with Mattel in that Ghostbusters line, you kind of got the idea, like, does anybody pay attention and know what's going on here? You're absolutely right. I mean, it's funny because it's the best comparison. And you see like the Black Series, or you even see like even the smaller versions of the normal figures, the 3 3/4 inch figures, where even though there might be a lack of paint, but all the sculpting is there, And then you see this other stuff, and it's like, why can't we have the same over here, Right. And say what you want about. Obviously, like you said, Star Wars is very opinionated, but from a toy perspective, they give you every character under the sun. Yep. Yeah. I was just reading today, people were complaining because there's a couple new Black Series exclusives coming out based on like very minor characters from Solo, and people are mad because they're saying, well, we haven't gotten this figure from the original trilogy yet or whatever. But if you're a hardcore collector and you're a completist, like I never tend to complain about why are they making this figure and not that figure. Like, I'm just glad that they're continuing the line, because like, again, when you go to the store a lot, especially with like the Rogue One line of the Black Series, and you see this stuff pile up and sit and then goes on deep discount, and it makes me worry, like, man, are they going to be able to continue this line? Because I know they're charging $20 a pop, but I don't remember the last time I paid $20 for a Black Series figure. I got the entire Solo line for $5 a piece because Target was making mistakes in their inventory. No, I have that feeling too sometimes when I see things,
early on the clearance aisle, or literally just like a pile of toys off, they're falling off the racks, off the hooks, and no employee is paying close attention and making everything look nice. And because it's really kind of like, especially if you're just a normal toy buyer, you see that mess, you keep on walking almost, if you're a parent.
Oh yeah.
But you're not going to dig through all that crap.
No.
So, especially at Walmart and Target, I mean, it's like, have some pride in your work, for God's sake. You're trying to sell. You're trying to sell this stuff. You're not going to sell a car with it on its side.
Right. Yeah.
But to put my final thoughts in, because we went off on an awesome tangent, but I wanted to make sure I had this out there with the Diamond Select real Ghostbusters. I like the head sculpts for Ray and Peter. I don't like the ones for Winston and Egon. They look almost like anime versions of themselves.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
And I don't like the jumpsuits, the bodies, because I don't know if they're a direct movie swap. They're just repainted. But
they look like it, because if you noticed, the Ray figure that they displayed is not short and pudgy, and
exactly.
You can see the name tags painted over from the movie figures,
which could just be for just the display for Comic-Con.
Right. Could be,
but still though, for me, that's too much detail for a cartoon figure.
Right.
For me, I mean, people, like I said, some people are like, "What are you talking about? Well, how can you say anything negative? We should be grateful that there's anything real Ghostbusters out there." And it's like, I hear you, but at the same time, though, it's 2018. I have a little more attention to detail instead of being so cheap and just giving me the movie version, because I can take the movie version and repaint it myself.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny. And I agree. I think, like, remember a couple years ago, Walmart had the exclusive Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures that were like based on Secret of the Ooze. They came in like the pretty nice.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I didn't buy them. I didn't buy them. I'm glad I didn't.
They came in really nice window packaging.
Yeah.
And the figures were kind of like whatever looking. Like they were clearly Ninja Turtles, and they somewhat resembled what you saw in the movie, but somebody had a 1-to-1 comparison shot between those and the new NECA figures from Comic-Con this year.
Night and day.
It's like you're looking at two action figures that, even though the NECA figures are a Comic-Con exclusive and you can only get them in a box set, it's basically the same price point, a $25-$30 figure.
Yep.
And you're looking at one which looks like a work of art, and the other is like a mass-produced, toy factory kind of thing.
Well, there's no paint on those damn things. The ones that were at Walmart. There's no paint. It's the same thing that Playmates has been doing for a long time. Is just basically, okay, this figure is mostly green, so we're gonna make sure the injection mold plastic is green, and we're gonna paint the eyes, and that's it.
Yeah, and it sucks.
And hopefully they're looking at you and not looking to the side. Like
no, most of the time they're. It's so hard to find those figures with the eyes looking any other way other than cross-eyed or whatever.
Right.
Before we're about to move on, but I wanted to ask you about this. We were talking earlier about stuff that you never knew existed, as far as like toys and finding prototypes, and I saw you posting today. You got some press kits from Swamp Thing and Robin Hood, and just some really cool stuff. By the way, if anybody wants to check out your stuff, I know you're at. Is it Bobby? Well, go ahead and tell the people. You tell the people where they can find you, because you're going to be able to do it better than I can.
My people, my followers.
Yes.
Come hither.
Come look at my Robin Hood prototypes.
Anyone who has Instagram, and if you don't, I recommend that you get it. It's honestly a cool networking place for collectors. I only buy on eBay, but I buy and sell through Facebook and Instagram. It's just a better experience, if you ask me.
Yep.
And smoother. My Instagram name is @Bobby_80's. and lowercase b. Some bastard has uppercase B, Bobby 80's. I don't know who he is, but he beat me to it. So
Well, we're gonna take care of that. We break legs around here.
And if you're interested on Facebook, you can find me at Bobby's Toy Chest. I try to share the same photos for the most part, but Instagram is where I focus, like my main focus. Bobby's Toy Chest is where my place to show things, but I also go on a little, like kind of like what we're doing here. We're talking. I pose a lot of questions. I also vent a little bit, collectors' frustrations, and it's comforting to know that other people are feeling the same thing sometimes, and or just showing off. Say, hey, listen, this is what I got, or hey, this is what's coming out. I can't wait to see it, kind of thing. So you get two different experiences of the Bobby experience from Instagram and Facebook.
Everybody needs the Bobby experience. I'll put that out there because you post great content.
Thank you.
Content is king. Your Instagram is. I think that's where I probably first knew about you, on Instagram, and then joined up on Bobby's Toy Chest on Facebook. What I was going to ask you about is a buddy. You might know Adam Marish. I don't know. He's a big collector, and he's part of the Ghostbusters community.
The name rings a bell. I'm not sure. I think is Ghostbusters his main focus, or
Ghostbusters and Aliens are his main two things. But he's a friend of ours, and he's a known person in the Ghostbusters community. He's been doing it for a long time. He's building an Ecto-1 right now. He's been doing a lot of the high-profile auction stuff. So he bought Dan Aykroyd's screen-used jumpsuit from Ghostbusters 2 this year.
Oh, wow.
And he also bought the I think the coolest thing he owns is the tripod traps from the jewelry store scene in Ghostbusters 2.
Nice.
So yeah, he's got some really good stuff. But he posted the other day, he picked up a piece of concept art from Kenner for a series that never happened, and I'm sure there's a lot of this stuff floating around. But it was for young Ghostbusters.
Yes, I saw that. He got it from Joe O'Brien. He's got like the art of Kenner, or art of RGB, and awesome dude. And he's got so much stuff that is. He's one of those nice people that he actually shows what he has.
Right. And
so, it's just if anyone, he's also on Instagram, the art of RGB. If you're into Kenner and Ghostbusters, I definitely recommend seeing him. But yeah, I saw that post that Adam got that. It's a great piece.
Yeah, it's very cool, and it kind of makes you wonder about because we're about to talk about the Real Ghostbusters pilot, which you found the original film reel for, and we covered in great detail on Ghostbusters Day. It makes you wonder about all this stuff that's floating out there that, like, obviously we never got a line of young Ghostbusters, but man, when I saw that, my wheels started turning.
I was able to get another. Joe doesn't sell a lot of things, and when he does, you got to jump on it when he does. I was able to get one of those concept boards from Kenner from him, and it was basically an accessory that they never made. Basically, it was like an air pump backpack.
Okay.
For the regular figurines, the regular 3 3/4 figures.
Okay.
It's an accessory where it has like a air hose connected to a ghost trap.
Oh,
and
wow.
So it has air pump on the back. You basically press the air pump, and it would either open or close the trap, basically.
Okay.
So
Very cool.
It was basically a miniature version of the role-playing ghost trap.
That is very cool. I like that.
So... but yeah, it's crazy because the only way to know about this stuff is to have collectors be like, look what I found. And there's a lot that don't do that. A lot of the stuff is out there that you and I will never, ever see. Right. And it's sad. It's sad.
I think for a long time with Real Ghostbusters, like, I think when you first get into collecting the RGB stuff, the first thing you learn about is Egon's Laboratory.
Oh my God.
And it's kind of one of those things, like, I remember when I first heard about it, this was probably on a message board, 15 years ago. And it's like, wait a minute, what is it? It wasn't made. And then I start thinking in my head, I'm like, no, I had that. And I'm like, no, that was the Swamp Thing laboratory. Like, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, if it's a weird, wild world. And I'm sure we can go on for hours about it. But I want to talk to you about this Real Ghostbusters pilot. So let's catch people up. Before before we go any further, the real Ghostbusters debuted in 1987. Is that correct?
The cartoon debuted in fall of '86.
Okay, fall of '86.
The toys didn't come out until spring or summer of '87.
Okay. This pilot, right? So it's like basically like a 4-minute sizzle reel that was the first piece of production made. Was it used to sell the show to syndication? Like, tell me the history of what. By the way, what we're talking about is Rob, found the original film reel of the real Ghostbusters pilot, and you took it upon yourself. Nobody asked you to do this. Nobody paid you to do this. You took it. You restored it frame by frame into glorious high definition, and it debuted on Ghostbusters.com on Ghostbusters Day this year. So that's kind of the finish line. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. For those who don't know, what was the sizzle reel? Why does it exist?
So as soon as no one knew that Ghostbusters the movie back in '84 was going to be the massive hit it was going to be, the massive blockbuster that it became.
Right.
And because of that, they weren't ready for merchandise. They thought it was just going to be another summer movie and then move on. But
didn't
as soon
they
as
learn their lesson from Star Wars?
But you know what? That's Star Wars, though. I mean,
Right.
if you did that for every movie, you'd have a crap load of crap.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
in the clearance aisles.
Yeah.
It's weird because if you notice, they did nothing for Ghostbusters 1 until they like '85, where they came out with some T-shirts and some stickers and some hats, right? Yeah. But they went all out for Ghostbusters 2, merchandise wise.
Oh, it's great. You can find a lot of that stuff for pretty cheap because there's so much.
You can, and that honestly, when it comes to, I'll get back to Ghostbusters pilot in 2 seconds. But the biggest thing about collecting for me right now is that I'm at the point where I'm done locally, like USA. I'm done. I find a few miscellaneous things here and there, but majority of real Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 merchandise, the late 80s, early 90s merchandise, is all in the UK. I don't know who was in charge of marketing back then, but they got all the good stuff. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's interesting. I bought one of the Slimer Ghostbusters 2 fanny packs, and it came from the UK. That was maybe like a year ago.
Yeah, I got the fanny pack. I got this, like, it's basically the same artwork. There's a backpack, a fanny pack, and a pencil case with a zipper on it. And we could talk all day about that kind of stuff. I mean, I have a shelf full of this stuff, and then still I have things coming in right now from the UK. And I'll tell you that I'll never get that money back. I pay on shipping.
Yeah, it sucks.
It does.
It's almost like it might be worth it just to go over there with a couple empty suitcases for a week. And just go. We know a guy who does that. He makes like a annual trip to Japan just to buy Godzilla merchandise.
Wow.
But that's another tangent we don't need to go.
That's a whole other thing, yeah. But I mean, I do have collector friends that are in the UK, and they're more than kind enough to make a pile for me because they come across a lot of stuff, often enough that they're more than gracious enough to, have my crap lay in the corner of their room until I'm ready to get it, have it all shipped. Right. So. That's one nice thing that for collectors that's one workaround. Instead of spending shipping on 20 items, you can spend it on one item. Right. But to backtrack, the whole reason that you're having me on this show now is because of this restoration. So through my collecting, like I said in this little mini documentary that we made, just to explain to people the importance of this, I come across people that they know me for what I collect, and they sometimes approach me saying, "Hey, Rob, look at this Ghostbuster thing. I don't know if you already have it or not, but you have first picks if you want it." And majority of the time, it's all miscellaneous, common stuff, and it's like I appreciate it, but I already have it. But then every once in a while, a few gems be like, "Holy crap! I didn't even know that existed. I had no idea." And we make a deal, and it's a done deal. Now, same thing happened. Back in August or July of last year, where same thing. This is a random sunny day, and this guy messaged me saying, "Hey, Rob, I just came back from this haul, and I got a bunch of Ghostbusters marketing stuff, and I know you love Ghostbusters, and we've had a lot of good deals in the past. I'm going to give you first dibs on this. And I'm like, okay, send me some pictures, some prices, and let's see what you got.
Right.
And holy crap, so to backtrack a little more, this guy was on OfferUp.com just to find some Matty collector toys, for Ghostbusters, and some local seller was like selling them, and he went there locally to their house to buy them and pick them up and save on shipping. And he's looking around and he sees all this Ghostbuster merchandise, like marketing merchandise from the 80s, and he's like, "Oh, that's nice." And they're like, "Oh yeah, it's for sale too. We just haven't posted it yet." And he's like, "Oh, I'll buy it. Oh, how much?" And he must have got it for a steal, because even I got it from him from a steal, and he's making money.
Okay.
So it was just awesome all around. So he gets all these like press kits for Ghostbusters 1 and 2, the original 35 millimeter film trailers for both movies.
Okay.
Which is awesome. Some of the stuff is in German, and I try to get the guy to go back and get the full story, but basically it was a young couple in their early 30s, late 20s, and they were trying to get rent money, and I have no idea of how they acquire all this cool stuff.
Right.
Whether it was a lot of stuff is honestly from an estate sale. People go to these people that die and they have an estate sale kind of thing.
Right.
But regardless, this guy was able to get all this stuff for a good price, and just because he knew me as a Ghostbuster guy, he's like, "Hey, Rob, here you go." And so I basically cherry picked it. I left some stuff for other people to get I wasn't really interested in. But I see this film can, and I'm like, "What the hell is that?" And I asked all these questions, and basically all it said was 1986 Ghostbusters. And it was a film reel, 16 millimeter, and it said Deke on it.
Right. So right there, your brain probably says, okay, this might have something to do with real Ghostbusters. Like, I've been doing this long enough to know 1986, you see Deke, like, this is probably not related to the movie.
It didn't even say real on it. It just said Ghostbusters. And
okay.
But because it said Deke on it, I'm like, okay. And at the time, though, I didn't think too much of it. It was just like, to me, it would have been a cool conversational piece. I told him, listen, I don't have a projector, and projectors are expensive, and I'll probably end up ruining it, trying to play it.
Right.
Either I have no idea if the film was brittle or anything, or my biggest fear is, like, you try to play things on, you've seen it in movies where someone is playing something on a projector and the light bulb burns the film, literally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and the thing goes flying.
Yeah, so it's like, I really don't want to do that. And I tried researching 16 millimeter projectors. The shipping on them is ridiculous because they're so freaking heavy, and even though they're kind of small, they're just heavy. And then it's all this research about everyone is selling one, but they don't work. And then it's like, okay, how do I fix it? And then you're trying to track down repair parts. It's like it's a nightmare. So I told this guy, listen, I don't have a projector. It's going to be a conversational piece gathering dust on my shelf, and so we negotiate a reasonable price for it. And I basically make a pile bundle, and then I buy all this cool stuff. And so I make sure that he packs it well, 2-day priority. I get it in the mail on a Saturday, and I make sure I'm home to sign for it. And I get it in the mail, and I open it up, and I gently reveal the film, to like the lamplight.
Right.
And at that time, though, the only thing I knew about the Ghostbusters pilot was that it was the first piece that sold the franchise, basically.
Right.
So they created, at the time, it was 1985. Ghostbusters movie, had a nice run in 84. They were like, oh, crap, we have no merchandise, to sell this stuff. But, there's still like a craving for – there's a lot of money to be made still. Mm-hmm. So they said, okay, we're going to do a cartoon. Let's try to do a cartoon. So they gather up this crew at Deke, and they say, hey, give us a concept. Give us an idea of what it could be. So they do like a 3.5-minute concept, and all they had was the movie to base off of. So that's why the tan jumpsuits are still in this cartoon. Mm-hmm. That's why Slimer is still kind of evil, and Stay Puft is still kind of like, the baddie.
Right. Not to interrupt, but one thing that's really interesting about it is that a lot of what you do see in the pilot, like a lot of times when you see this kind of stuff, even the pilot for like a regular TV show, by the time it actually gets picked up and gets rolling, it changes pretty significantly. But when you watch this, especially in the the updated HD kind of colors, it's pretty besides the couple things you just named, it's not that far off from what we ended up getting with Real Ghostbusters.
It's not, and you know what? I think it's because they just they got it right the first time,
Right, which is really rare.
Yeah, but a lot of times too, though, pilots become the first episode that air in syndication.
Right.
Like let's say MacGyver. The first episode is called the pilot.
Right.
You know, so it wasn't until I got older that I realized what that meant.
Right.
But no, this thing was just an internal piece to sell the concept of the idea of a Real Ghostbusters cartoon. And so because there's a lot of changes to be made, that's probably why they didn't really use it. Plus, it's too short to be an episode.
Right.
And it's too long to be an intro. When was the last time you saw a 4-minute intro to a cartoon? So,
right.
But it is cool to see that that's where they got a lot of the ideas for the 30-second intro for the cartoon.
Now, so obviously we don't know. Well, you probably have some information about where the original film ended up. Like, we don't know how it got into these, the young couple's box of stuff, but. Yeah. Is there any kind of paper trail, from that time?
There's only when it was still in the hands of Deke. I have a sticky note. Well, here's the thing. What I have, and what Deke used to do is they would do the storyboards here in the States. They would send over the script and the storyboards over to Japan to the studio that did the animation. That's where they do the drawings and the animation, and then they would send it back in a film format back to Deke in California. And then that's where they would do all the audio and the music and the syncing up and stuff like that. They sent back a non-audioed, it's just a silent film of what they came up with and of the concept. And so what I still have the actual mailing envelope that has Japanese writing on it.
So that's the one. That's the one. That's the one. Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying that they didn't dub it or make copies of it in other formats, but this is the original one that came from the studio in Japan.
Right. That is very cool.
And so I have the mailing packet that it came in, and I have a employee written sticky note that says, Kim, send this film reel and this audio track to AP Photos and have them sync it up for a presentation on Friday.
Okay.
Now, AP is still around these days. They do a lot. They have a lot of things online where they sell photos or video to marketing companies. Like if you're a photographer and you shoot for AP, they'll have like a little watermark on it, and you have to pay to have that watermark removed.
Yeah.
And so what I have is also the tin can. What the film was sitting in wasn't the original tin can from the studio. It's the tin can that supposedly the synced up version for a presentation sat in.
Okay. So basically, once they got it back and they, synced it up with the audio and the music and everything, that is what was sent out in the new tin can, basically. Yeah,
and so something must have happened where, I don't know, you know how it is. It's almost like with like DVD cases or VHS cardboard holders, where it's like, okay, just for you temporarily put one that doesn't belong in one into the other kind of thing.
Right.
Like you're playing a video game.
You take it out and you put Madden into the the Mortal Kombat box or whatever.
Exactly. And so once the marketing and once all this hype was done, and once they realized they didn't need that reel anymore, I mean, who knows what happened to it? It could have sat on someone's shelf, waiting to be sent back, and it never got sent back, and then no one ever inquired about it,
Right, and that this was a time, like, I'm sure these days it would all just be digital, but nobody was, keeping track or archiving things the way that maybe, especially at this point, because they don't know, this could have been rejected and move on to the next thing. So
yeah, I mean, I've heard firsthand from a Deke employee that basically this is a scary thing to see. It was just scary because they said that once the episode was dubbed to broadcast beta tapes, the film was eventually discarded, which is sad.
Yeah,
it's sad.
Right.
So Deke did a lot of cartoons. We're talking Inspector Gadget. We're talking, Captain Planet, or Heathcliff, Real Ghostbusters. The list goes on.
Right.
And it's sad to hear that a lot of that film, if all of it, if not all of it, could be gone.
Right. Yes. If they're putting it on beta, and they have no use for it, a lot of it could have just ended up in the trash. What could have happened is somebody could have just been a fan of the movie and pocketed it and taken it home, and
that could be it. Everything here, whoever's listening, this is all speculation,
right.
But
we're just speculating.
But it's it's very.
But somebody stole it. I'm just kidding.
Here's the thing, it was a souvenir basically,
right?
But basically, as soon as I guess Deke moved like 3 times in a very short span.
Okay.
They moved their facilities in a very short span for whatever reason 3 times, and they saw how much money it cost to move that film.
Right.
You're thinking about the 20-minute film reels times how many ever episodes times however many shows you're doing. That's a lot of freaking film.
Right.
And so I guess they got tired of spending the amount to ship it, or the amount to transport it, and the amount to store it. And plus it's film, it had to be temperature controlled, so that probably the extra cost on electricity and, facilities to do that kind of thing. The beta tapes probably seemed more logical, economical, listen, they probably had no idea what the future could bring. They didn't think that far into the future. They were just trying to save a buck then, not later.
Yeah, well, it's the convenience of having something small and compact and not... it's not taking up space, and it's not as heavy, and you don't need to. It doesn't need as much, delicate care. It's kind of the same. It's funny now because vinyl's so big, but the reason why vinyl went away is because people wanted something less, intrusive, and so you go from vinyl to 8-track to cassette to CD to digital, and now people want vinyl, or people want film again. It's the circle of life.
We're coming back. Yeah, we're coming back to the beginning, and it's like, but we can't though. People are always so. Basically, through my journey, and I'm posting like before and after pictures, like teasers of the quality difference between what we saw on the Time Life box set.
Oh, that's what I meant to bring that up. So the only time people have seen this, 99.9% of people, is the beta transfer was
not even beta, not even.
So what was on the Time Life Real Ghostbusters Firehouse box set in the special features? The 4-minute pilot's on there, but it's in what form?
It's VHS.
Okay, it's a VHS transfer, and it's not. It doesn't look very good.
No, it doesn't. So basically, I'll try to zip through the history of it real quick, then I'll get us back to the present time here. So like I said, this was used as an internal concept pilot or pitch, just to get the show sold, so that they can make the episodes for syndication. And that's what we watched on Saturday morning cartoons. Now, once that deal was made, the need for that pilot was done. I mean, it did its job, and probably whoever was supposed to keep track of it, didn't care anymore. So, fast forward to 2008, because it was an internal piece, and DVDs, are just still making their way through home video and special feature. Which the thing about DVD is that it brings special features and bonus discs into play that that VHS couldn't do before. So for the first time in 2008, 99% of us, the public can now see that pilot for the first time ever. But it almost didn't even arrive on that box set because they couldn't find a copy of it in archives. They had to go to the original director who they were interviewing for the bonus features. And he snuck a copy of it back in the day to VHS. They weren't letting a lot of people near it. And because he was the director of it, he wanted to have a personal copy for just for his resume, or just for he worked on it. He wanted to have a sentimental copy of it.
Right. And
so he snuck a recorder in to record the damn thing. And so if it wasn't for him, Kevin Altieri was the director of the pilot, and he was interviewed for the box set. And he's the whole reason why we even have that on the box set. But he's also the only reason we have an audio track.
Right, because that's the source. That's the only source. And so the one, when you began the restoration process, that was the only... Sorry, some cars are... I don't know. Something's going on.
I heard it.
What kind of neighborhood am I living in? Hey, we're podcasting, folks. Don't they? I just go, it's like the old school, get off my front lawn. I go out there, we're podcasting here. Anyways, the audio track that you used for your restoration is that audio track that he sourced.
That's correct, because that's the only surviving source that's come to light. I mean, I keep saying I have the only film copy. I have the only known film copy. I mean, someone, 20 years from now might dig up something, who knows? Anything is possible. But the reason why this pilot is so important, it's important on many levels. Because Deke discarded the film for their episodes.
Right.
At the moment, this is the only surviving film of real Ghostbusters.
Right.
So that's crazy. That's point one. That's crazy.
Right.
It's point one.
Right.
That's point one, though. It's the only surviving film copy of the concept pilot that got the whole cartoon that we know and love sold in the first place.
Right.
And because of Kevin's sneakiness back in the day, he's the reason why we have an audio source to sync up to that, because there is no other surviving source on cassette or LP or film that someone has come to light with and say, hey, listen, I have this, and this is what it's for.
Even if it's out there, more than likely, wherever it is, people don't know. Somebody might have it in a box in their basement somewhere and have no clue.
It could still be in a former employee's basement or attic.
Right.
That someone took home. It could be. I just recently acquired a lot of Filmation artwork for Ghostbusters.
Okay.
And that was recently found in an old Filmation storage unit.
Okay.
That was auctioned off.
Right. And you just I think what's serendipitous about all of this in your story is that out of all the people in the world for this piece of film to fall into the hands of,
mm-hmm.
you get it, you know what it is, you get the idea of, okay, this should be restored. Now maybe 75% of collectors, 50% of collectors who find that, maybe they sell it, maybe they archive it, maybe they keep it, maybe they turn it over to Sony. You say, I've got a background in video editing and I guess I don't want to assume. What is your background? I think it's video editing, but
no, you're absolutely correct. I spent basically since high school I've been video editing in some form or fashion.
Okay.
And then it became a career. I mean, I went to film school. I worked for ESPN and Disney doing video editing as a career. And so,
what do you do now? Just out of sheer curiosity.
I currently still do work for ESPN in some form or fashion. I'm basically a contractor at this moment, but I work directly at ESPN in Orlando.
Okay.
And do a lot of producing and video editing. But it pays the bills. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I'm not a big sports guy, but it pays the bills.
Gotcha.
And it pays for my habit, habit,
habit, hobby.
Yeah, hobby.
Hey,
it gives me my fix.
There's a lot. There's many worse habits to have.
Yeah, trust me. I think drugs are cheaper.
Yeah, nobody's looking for prototype heroin. They just want whatever they can find.
Yeah, exactly. But
God, it just got dark.
But so yeah. You're right. I mean, here's the thing. Think about this in this way. The amount I call it the planets aligning for this moment, because I don't think that even the people that had this knew what they had.
Right.
The dealer who was just buying up stuff to flip and sell didn't know what he had.
Right. When
I was buying it, I didn't know what it was. I honestly thought it was either going to be a commercial or maybe an internal, like, promotional thing for a meeting, saying, maybe like the president of Deke was going to be like, a message to his employees saying,
okay,
all right, we're going to have a great year, guys. This is what's coming up in our fall lineup, And,
it could have been one of those, like those used to be really big, like those pilot presentations they would have like on ABC, where they like debut all the new, clips from the new shows for the fall season. That's probably where my mind would have gone of what it could be at first.
Well, because of the date, it was a week before the first episode aired. And so on Saturday morning cartoons, and I figured, okay, well, maybe it's the first episode. That's cool too. And at that time, I had no idea how rare film for real Ghostbusters was. To me, it was just a cool conversational piece, and that's why I bought it.
Right. Like, I'm just being honest, if I would have found that in a box, I would have taken it out, looked at the film, saw that it was real Ghostbusters, and probably just put it on a shelf. And not really thought much else of it.
If it was like, let's just put it this way, in perspective, if it was just like one of the random episodes, it'd be on my shelf right now, and then that'd be it,
Right.
Done deal. I'd talk about it, and it would last one day, on social media.
Right.
Like, oh, that's so cool, and then moving on. But no, so I get it, and because I've seen the bonus disc on Time Life set, I know of the pilot. I didn't know how rare or the story behind the pilot was. I didn't know that it was only a VHS copy that exists up to that point. But I did recognize the 4 same color tan jumpsuits, and at that point I'm like, oh shit.
Right. You're thinking we got one.
Yeah. I mean, holy crap. And so that's when I started doing all the research, and I'm like realizing how rare and like what kind of thing I'm holding. And I'm like, oh crap. So it's like I said, it was a Saturday that I got in the mail. And I'm doing all this research. I'm like, I'm trying to figure out how to back this up, because I'm like, regardless of what happens to it, like you said, either give it to Sony or whatever, I need to have a copy of it backed up immediately.
Right. And
so I had a few options, but I didn't like it much. I didn't really like them. I could have said to Sony, hey, here you go. Well, welcome home kind of thing.
Right.
You guys have the equipment to do this. I don't. But then I worried that it would just sit on their shelf,
Right.
They would not deal with it until later, if at all. And
because if you got to think, a fan's perspective or a collector's perspective is, I just found this treasure, the world needs to see it. Real Ghostbusters, a real Ghostbusters pilot from 30 years ago, as cool as it is more than likely not going to be at the top of anybody's priority list at a film studio.
Not at all, especially after, like, regardless of what you think of the film, it didn't, the newest Ghostbuster movie didn't, do too well,
right.
So as far as, like, moving forward with the franchise, it's kind of up in the air. And so, but regardless though, it landed in my hands that someone who is a Ghostbusters fan, like hardcore, and someone who does video editing for a living. So I had 2 other options. I either could say, here, Sony, have fun with it. Please do the fans right, and just kind of like fingers crossed, or do it myself at least before I do anything with it. So at least we have my version out there.
Right.
And so, and at least I can say, listen, I gave it my shot, and at least it's backed up in some form or fashion. So, because it's film, it's the only copy, and God forbid there's a flood or fire in my house,
it's done for. There's just nothing.
That's it.
Irreplaceable.
So my biggest fear was to send it out somewhere, because my biggest fear was to have it lost in the mail.
Right.
Or damaged, crushed in the mail or lost. And at that point, it's like, oh crap, because I researched on like people that can scan this for a living. They have facilities that have the equipment to scan old film. so to digital format. And so I was lucky enough to find a guy within driving distance. And I emailed him, I called him, and that Monday I drove up to him and I said, hey, I explained the importance of it. I said, listen, I'll pay you a rush fee, because I really didn't want it in his possession longer than it had to be. And so 3 days later, I had a digital scan of the film, and I immediately got to work. Now, what they normally do, and these people that do this for a living, what they normally do is they scan it for people and they burn it to DVD, so that they at least have it in different format that the average Joe can watch. The average family can just enjoy on their TV screen. But because I wanted to edit it and I wanted to restore it, I needed it in a different format, especially with all the dust marks. So his computer or his scanning device was able to create high-res JPEGs.
Okay, for every single frame?
For every single frame, and they're numbered. So,
okay,
there's no chance of things getting misplaced or in the wrong order.
Right.
So that made things so much easier in a way for editing and restoring, because
just out of curiosity, how many individual JPEGs is that 4 minute reel?
It's over 5,500 frames.
Okay.
5,500 JPEGs. It's over that, and it's a lot.
That's insane.
So, because it's really, in reality, it's like 5,600 and change. But I just say 5,500 just to be, simple.
It's a
good round number,
Yeah.
But regardless, though, I did everything in Adobe products. So I did Photoshop and I did Premiere. It took me 4 months in Photoshop to get all the frames done.
Okay.
And I had to go back many times. So initially, when I did my first run through Photoshop, I was then done, and then I put everything in order on a timeline in Premiere. And then that was the first time I saw it play out.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's all video is. That's all. Everything you see on the TV screen, that's all it is a bunch of moving pictures.
Right. So you spend 4 or 5 months doing what you do in Photoshop to get everything, all the color correction,
not even color correction, not even that.
Okay, but your first pass to improve the quality.
Yes.
You get them all on a timeline in Premiere, and you watch it for the first time.
Yes.
Okay.
And so Photoshop, the main focus of Photoshop was to remove any damage or dust marks or hairline marks, whatever was in the film that couldn't be cleaned off.
Okay.
And so how you watch an old film, you see things flickering,
right.
on the screen.
Right.
I removed all of that. And so once I was able to play it in Premiere, it still needed color correcting. That's what Premiere was for, color correction.
Okay.
And so, but it was also allowed me to see what I missed my first time through Photoshop. So I was able to go through and see, oh crap, I saw something flicker. I had to go back frame by frame. And,
there it is.
The cool thing was I could reopen it from Premiere into Photoshop, save, and it would update in Premiere.
Right. I'm sure. That's a very cool feature. It's very helpful in video editing when you're able to, if you've ever worked in Illustrator or Photoshop, or I'm drawing a blank on the animation studio, but it's very convenient to be able to send that stuff back and forth like that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was the only way for me to do it. I mean, as far as economically, it was the way I did it was the best way to do it. And as I'm watching this, it's come together, but then I had actually had the film scanned twice for certain scenes. The machine that the guy used, it's not just like you just feed the film through and you scan it and you're done. It has variables. It has how bright the bulb is or the light is, so that the camera can see the film. So a few things were overexposed, like the ghost walking down the street. I couldn't see the shadows. The ghost is 2 different colors. He's white, but with gray shadow, shade on parts of his body.
Okay.
if you go back to the film, you'll see that he's basically two different colors. And I could not see the gray on him. And so I had to do a lot of crazy things. Well, for one thing, I had to get rescanned at a lower light level so that the exposure could be, usable. And so there's a few other things that I had to do too, like the grocery lady at the very beginning. She was so overexposed that her eyes and nose were just not there. So I had to do a second pass with the guy with different, adjustments with the knobs, so that we can actually see her better. And then I was able to, fix it from there. Okay. But I know I'm getting to a little bit the deeper detail. The average Joe is like, what the hell, whatever.
Yeah, no. This is, if anybody who's listening to this is going to want to know, because people, I think, in the Ghostbusters community are familiar with, that you found it and that it was released. And I think there's like a 4 or 5 minute little documentary that you put on YouTube covering some of this. But we asked you on to get down to the nitty gritty of what got you from point A to Ghostbusters there.
Yeah, I guess I was going a little bit detail just to give people an idea of what I went through, because I could easily just say, yeah, I found it and I restored it, done deal.
Right. We want the people watching it to feel the man hours and your family fell apart and you were out on the streets and you just had to drag your Adobe Premiere to the local library and do it there. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's funny because the original computer that I was working on crashed.
Okay, that's stressful.
My Mac died and from a factory defect, and yeah, it was nothing I could do. I had to basically start from scratch. But luckily, I saved the majority of my work, on a thumb drive. So I was very diligent about saving stuff to a offline media
That's good.
Just in case. But so that was like one setback, and then then another setback was having to go back and get the film rescanned just for certain scenes. There was like 5 scenes that I was not happy with, and I could not make it work.
Okay. With
the first time through, that it was just too overexposed, that too much detail was being lost. And that was the whole point of this, was the detail compared to VHS.
Right. It wasn't just to have a nicer looking version to throw on YouTube and forget about. If you're going to put in 5 months of work, you want it to be perfect, or as perfect as you can.
Well, especially with the way social media is, anyone today is looking for a reason to shut you down, And I was trying to get to the point where I was like, there's like, you have nothing to say.
Right. What are you going to say to this? I will say the response has been overwhelmingly positive. I haven't read one negative thing about it. Coming from any fan community, specifically Ghostbusters, that's a great thing. So once you finish up, once you get it to the point where you say, okay, this is ready to be seen and viewed, you're considering your options. I'm assuming you reached directly out to Ghost Corps. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I was tinkering with plan A, B, and C, to be honest.
Okay.
Because I was trying to do it the legal way, but I was prepared to do it to the point where they say, "Hey, take that down." You don't have the rights.
Kind of the old, ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah, but because what though, it's all utter crap. Because if anyone complained, it's like there's a version of it right now on YouTube, and it's been there for years.
Right.
So I wasn't too worried about it, but I was prepared for any outcome. But yeah, someone on Instagram who's a big Ghostbusters fan, and he has his own podcast and YouTube page. He got me in contact with a Ghost Corp representative, and at first they wanted me to donate the film. They wanted to ask if I would consider donating the film, and they weren't really interested in the restoration itself. It just hadn't hit the like, oh wait, this is actually a cool thing.
Right.
I was like, well, I thought it would be kind of cool, for people to see this, officially, whether you allow me to post it on YouTube or you guys post it on YouTube yourselves or Facebook or whatever, have it out there so that, people can see it. And
you were pushing. So you were pushing for it. So it wasn't.
I was.
This wasn't. An opportunity for you to, I'm assuming you weren't seeking like a financial gain, or like it wasn't necessary. It was just about getting it out into a medium where you put 5 or 6 months into work into this piece that has been kind of lost in time, and you want to go about letting the world view it,
there
take
was.
it all in.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there was a few ways that I was ready to let it go down. I mean, money was never a topic in any conversation, and it was mostly about credit for my work.
Right.
You know,
which there's not an artist in the world who doesn't want credit for their work.
So I worked hard to really push for that. I mean, I said basically I had them by the balls. I mean, it was up to them if they wanted to care enough. You know, because they could have said it's real Ghostbusters. That's in the past. We're moving forward with our other agendas and other storylines and other parts of the franchise. Right. You know, we're not. This is not worth the effort.
Yeah.
But
one thing for those not familiar, so when we talk about Ghost Corps, and I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you know this, but in case you don't, Ghost Corps is Ivan Reitman and Dan Aykroyd's production company that was set up at Sony specifically for Ghostbusters, television, film, merchandising, anything Ghostbusters related is going to come through the umbrella of Ghost Corps. The timing of when it was set up was pretty interesting. There's a whole nother podcast. There's a whole nother series of podcasts to talk about some of the back and forth between Ghostbusters Answer the Call and what happened with Ghost Corps and all that. But the entire thing over there, the entire production company, is to see the Ghostbusters brand into the future. And I think that's kind of what you're referring to. They could have easily been like, "Hey, nobody cares. We're going a different direction, and it's just not worth our time." But that's not what happened. I'm assuming
that's not what happened. No, not at all. And I was so happy that we were able to make something happen because I was in a weird situation because I don't have the rights to Real Ghostbusters, obviously.
Right.
But when things fall into the collector realm or the public property realm, I physically own the film itself.
Right. It's your property.
It's my property. I paid for it. It's mine. It's that no one can say, this was stolen, return it kind of thing.
Right.
But at the same time, though, I have no rights to what's on the film.
Right.
So,
it's like a weird legal thing. Like you can own it all day long, but you really can't legally profit off of it.
I can't profit off of it, and showing it, is also a gray area too.
Right.
So on my own. So
these kinds of things are always so weird because in my mind it's always like it's as long as it's not hurting the franchise or the brand, then who cares?
I agree. I fully agree because we see it so many times. Right now where things are online, we know that's not the official thing, but it's there. And it's been there. But fan art is different than actual original art.
Right.
So that's where because even though I had a restoration version, and it was basically my version of it, but it's still too close to be up to the original art that I can't call it my own.
Right.
So, but at the very least, I wanted to. I mean, they could have paid. They could have said, "Hey, listen, we're going to give you this amount of money, and we're going to take this off your hands, and that'll be the end of it. Your name will be nowhere attached to it ever."
Right.
But like I said, that never came into play, and neither side ever started that conversation. But I said to them, "Listen, I have this restoration. I think this needs to be out there, and I'm willing to work with you guys to make it happen. But at the very least, I want my name. Hey, listen, I think it would be a cool featurette, either on a bonus feature or on a website or whatever.
Right.
Fan lost and found.
Right.
So, like I said, we were able to make something work, and we originally were, talking about other ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to go into too much detail because I can't.
Right.
Legally, and also because I want to keep working with these guys.
Right. Yeah.
But
without going into detail, it's no secret that the 35th anniversary is coming up. There's going to be new events, new DVD releases, all sorts of stuff. So I think it's safe to say there's a lot of different routes that this could have gone. Once they
Yes.
agreed that, like, hey, we are interested in putting this out in some official capacity, there's different ways it could have gone.
Yes, but they said, you know what? They said the timing just worked for this year. That, hey, you're already done with restoration. We've already done the legal work where we've signed contracts where I say here's the restoration, and they say, okay, we're going to credit you on where we can, wherever it's posted or wherever it's used. And so they said, hey, wait a minute, Ghostbusters Day is around the corner. We're going to use it for that. And so, which is really cool because waiting a whole year for the 35th would have been agonizing,
Yeah, I mean,
because I was really. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I assumed once you kind of stopped posting about it on your Facebook group, I kind of assumed, okay, there's some wheels in motion here, but I didn't really. I thought maybe waiting a year was in play. I'm glad it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it really, because like I said, I love, like we said before about my toy collecting and my interaction with people and reading comments and commenting back. I mean, I loved it doing through the whole process of restoring this thing and showing people little teasers and before and afters, and not being able to show. It got to the point where there's nothing left to show but the whole thing,
Right.
And I had nothing left to show, and I was like, kind of like, in like I was like striving for like, I needed my fix, basically. And like I said, waiting a whole year would have been agonizing. But like I said, I was glad that we were able to come to an agreement and we were able to make it happen. And honestly, personally, this is my opinion. I think it was the best thing at Ghostbuster Day. So I'm just going to say it right now. I thought it was the best part of Ghostbuster Day.
It was great. I mean, there was definitely some announcements this year, but I think everybody kind of feels like, next year, as far as like
Next year, yes.
New movie announcements, the animated movie, new TV shows. One thing I will say is that the reaction that the pilot got was huge. Everybody was talking about it. It was funny. People kept messaging me, have you seen this? Have you seen this? I'm like, yes, of course. Because we had talked and everything. So one thing that was really interesting in general about Ghostbusters Day this year, it was extremely focused on the original movies and, of course, real Ghostbusters. There was no sense of... it almost felt kind of like we're going to take a look backwards and acknowledge the past and start laying down a new foundation for the fandom as we begin to look forward. I personally think that real Ghostbusters could be in play for some sort of, comeback. Whether it's a new animated series based on that. They're working on an animated movie. Obviously, there's the real Ghostbusters are featured in the comics a decent amount. But it was really cool to see the super positive response. What was... I think they released... The website, I think, went live maybe like 9 a.m. Eastern. So what... take us through Ghostbusters Day for you. First of all, how far before... So Ghostbusters Day was last Friday. How long in advance did you know that it was going to launch on the website for GB Day?
I think I do about a month in advance.
Okay.
And so yeah, it was like agonizing to wait even that long, because I couldn't even say anything. I couldn't even promote it.
Right. Right.
Everything had to be a surprise, which was great that it was. But it was like, knowing a secret that you can't tell anyone. It's like, ah, crap.
Right. Right.
But once it finally came, like, here's the thing. I wish I knew when they were going to post, because I don't even think they knew at the time when I asked them. But I was like staying up late, like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I was waiting I kept refreshing Ghostbusters.com, and it kept having that under construction thing.
Yeah, like the temporary page.
Yeah, and I was like, come on, I want to be able to finally, the day has come. Legally, it's June 8th, come on, let's go. And I had to wait till I got to work and at 9 a.m. and it's like, oh, there it is. And people start posting like, it's up. I'm like, oh, crap, okay. So now I can I had a few like posts ready to go and a few, things I made in Photoshop ready to go. And to finally tell people, hey, guess what's on that site, guys? Go check it out. And honestly, from 9 a.m. till maybe midnight, I was on social media. And just to reply to people, because like you said, the reactions was huge and very positive. And I was trying to stay in the realm of, just interacting with people. I think that's something that a lot of people don't get when they post on certain things. They say, "Oh, I love this," and then no one responds. Like, "Oh, hey, where'd you get this?" And then no one answers their question.
Right,
I like to be a people person when it comes to that. I mean, I might not be a people person in person, but
well, that's online, part of a big thing of building like an online presence or an Instagram page or a Facebook page or whatever is the interaction, the comments, the going and checking out other people's stuff and actually making it feel more like a community than just I am an entity. I am Bobby 80's. You will look at my stuff and I will not talk to you. Because I mean, you consider you're a collector. You're part of a fan community. None of us, I always say, we sit here. We do Yes Have Some podcast. We talk to interesting people and we shoot the shit about Ghostbusters and Jurassic Park and Star Wars. But we're not making millions. We're just having fun and because we're passionate about it.
Absolutely. And like I said, I mean, I was there all day. I mean, between Twitter, I have a Twitter account, but I really don't use it that much. I mean, I really don't get Twitter personally. It's especially with their limitations. Like I try to type a lot of shit, and then you have one character left.
Right.
I'm like, screw you. I got a lot to say here, and I have no characters left to tag people or tag things. It's
right.
like, oh, come on. So I have a Twitter account, but between Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, I was on my phone. I was bouncing back and forth,
right.
Trying to catch up on people tagging me and commenting on tags and asking questions. And it's so yeah, that interaction was amazing.
And it was cool. In the official press release for Ghostbusters Day, that all the websites had, we had it, and GhostbustersNews.com. You got full credit, and I thought that was really, cool because it's not easy. What I like about Ghost Corps, I can't speak for Sony, as a whole. It's a giant corporation, and I'm assuming because they're a giant corporation, they're probably not great. But Ghost Corps, there feels like kind of a scrappiness to it. Ghostbusters, in general, is about underdogs, fighting the system. So it was really cool that you were able to work with them and work it out, and actually, we're seeing fan participation, kind of become part of the official celebration. I don't think there's anything better than that.
No, Ghost Corp. There's a bunch of good people there. They love what they do. They love the franchise, but I kind of think of them as you can't think of them as a corporation. They are part of a corporation.
Right.
They have people to they have to report to, and so it took a few months to get this deal done because it was basically back and forth emailing to the higher ups,
Right. Yeah, because there's always going to be somebody above you that needs to approve it.
Yes.
Do you think? Did you hear from them at all once it was released? I'm assuming you have no sense of how many views it's getting since it's on their website, not on YouTube or anything. But I think it's safe to assume that there's thousands and thousands of people flocking to watch it.
Well, I think there is too. I haven't talked to them yet. I was kind of hoping to see if they would reach out to me first. But at the same time, though, it's freaking Sony and Ghost Corp. There's bigger things than me, So, I mean, I was trying to let the dust settle for a little bit and see if they come back to me with some more ideas for stuff. Or it's not like a personal thing where it's like, hey, Rob, how you doing? I'm just calling to say hi. It's mostly just business, but it's a friendly business if you want to put it that way. But no, I will ask them how many views has gotten up to that point because I am curious. But I mean, I kind of lost track here. What were we talking about? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I was just wondering if you had any sense of how much viewership it was getting, or anything like that.
As far as how many views it's gotten, or how I honestly I think you're right. You're right. They're right up there with the thousands. I've gotten messages and people have tagged me in things, or they've wanted me to like their page, and it's all these Ghostbuster groups.
There's so many of them. It's ridiculous.
And I had no idea because all of a sudden I have friends now, or people that know me now, from the Switzerland Ghostbusters, you know?
It's crazy. We get because when we started off, we weren't ever a 100% Ghostbusters podcast, but all of us are longtime Ghostbusters fans. We're all members of the Georgia Ghostbusters, which is like our local franchise. And whoa, we got some thunder going here. We got everything happening in Atlanta tonight. But yeah, so we get tagged and we interact with literally people from all over the world, from Germany, from Italy, Japan, Mexico. It's an interesting fan base because it's huge, but it feels more contained than something like Star Wars or Star Trek or some of these other giant fan bases.
Yeah, I mean, I was just blown away because the great part of it being on the official Ghostbusters website is that I feel that it's going to get as many views as it possibly can that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
As opposed to YouTube. I mean, YouTube might have maybe second in line, but let's say I created my own website, because that was my plan B or C, was to create an old Wix.com website,
right?
Which went through the history of it, and then a little player for the actual restoration, and just wait to be told to take it down, kind of thing.
Right.
But I'm just so happy that we were able to work something out, and then it's out there officially, and my name is still attached to it, that I still can be recognized for that work. I'm not making a dime off of it, and I'm perfectly cool with that. This was a fan labor of love for me, right. And so.
Well, what's going to happen is you're gonna get paid in a different way, which is somebody's going to watch it, see your name, and they're going to have some rare, Kenner prototype, and they're going to reach out to you and be like, hey, I want to gift this to you for the hard work you've done.
Dude, if only. I hope so. But you're not too far off, where I come across rare gems, rare collectibles, and my form of, because there's a lot of different collectors out there.
Right.
Some of them are, they're just financially they're not there, and they try to make you feel guilty, kind of thing. It's like, oh, come on, man, I really love it. Let me have it for a good deal. No. Please. And I'm like, dude, I have $300 into this thing. I can't sell to you for $100.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's one of those weird things. Value's value, and I think I've seen you commenting on this before. One of the worst things that's happened for collecting in general are shows like Pawn Stars and American Pickers and just weird. Everybody thinks what they have is you either have something that people want to lowball you for, or people have things that they're just pricing at ridiculous prices. Because there was a time 5 or 6 years ago where I was buying and selling toys full time. That's code for I was unemployed, and it was crazy. People would want retail-esque prices for these collections. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be able to spend $500 on this stuff and then flip it for $300. It's just not going to work that way.
Exactly. Well, my version of that, please, give me a deal, man. Give me a break. Well, my version of that is just whipping out photos of my collection.
Right.
like the wall photos,
right.
This room photos. And it's like, hey man, that's a cool item, it would look great in my collection, and I just kind of flash, and then this is what happens sometimes. It doesn't work every time, but it's when you talk about people gifting things or whatever, they'll at least be kind enough to give me first dibs. Yeah.
Well, if you have something that you love, and you're going to get rid of it, you hope it goes to somebody who's going to appreciate it,
exactly,
and value it. Because at the end of the day, it's all just stuff, right? So it's like, there's not a toy I've ever bought that if I owned a piece if Ghostbusters is my number one, it's hard for me to sell Ghostbusters stuff. But if I had a Ninja Turtles something, like a prop or a prototype that I loved, but a giant Ninja Turtles fan who wanted it more than I did, I'm gonna work with somebody like that. I'm not going to shun somebody, but when they start lowballing you or just asking for it, that's where you gotta kind of draw the line.
Yeah, that's where you gotta say, yeah, sorry, can't do it, man. But no, it goes even a step further sometimes, where people are like, so I don't know if you've even seen it in my collection, but I have this. I've only seen one of them, and I have it. So it's a big cardboard sign for Ghostbusters 2 / Real Ghostbusters. It's a toy store.
Okay.
Like cardboard banner.
Okay. I think I've seen that. It's like something they would have had displayed in retail.
Yeah, it was basically it has like two like loopholes, like loops in the top part of it in the corners. So I think it was something that hung somewhere.
Okay, like hung like from the from sometimes they have those like you see at Walmart, like the signs that hang from the rafters or whatever.
Yeah, like so basically like there'd be like an aisle sign saying, right. Ghostbusters toys here, aisle 5, whatever.
Right.
But over your head kind of thing. And so because it's double-sided too, so it had to be seen somewhere, either at a window or up at the top of an aisle. But basically an awesome dude in Ohio found this in a guy's garage, and somehow it didn't get sun faded, thank God.
Right.
And so he had it for like 30 years, and it was in good condition. And I always get tagged a lot for like people say, hey, listen, my buddy has this Ghostbuster stuff. He hasn't posted it yet, but talk to him. Maybe he'll work a deal with you.
Right.
Well,
you've positioned yourself to. I mean, that's the benefit of building a little brand for yourself online, is that people come across stuff and they know you and they say, hey, check this shit out.
Exactly. So I did honestly, I turned this guy away the first time because he wanted a lot of money for it, but he could have asked even more for it, or he could have posted on eBay and possibly gotten more for it. And he was just so nice because he knew of me and he saw photos of my collection, and he said, listen, dude, I don't care what we got to do, but I will work with you on this.
Right.
Because I turned him away. I said, listen, I can't afford that right now. Take it. Do the rounds. Ask
right.
a few other people first, and if you still have it in a month or two, let me see what I can do. Basically, we worked on a payment plan where I paid whatever every month.
Okay.
And he was just so nice, and
that's cool that he let you do that.
Well, yeah, because sometimes people need money now, for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, I mean that's usually why people are, unless you're a dealer, if somebody's selling something awesome, it's usually because they're trying to come up with some cash. Sometimes to buy something else, sometimes to pay the water bill. You just never know. Yeah,
dude, been there on both ends.
Oh yeah, all right.
We all have.
Hey, there's nothing worse than like you're sitting in your house putting together your 100% complete Technodrome, but the lights are off. It's like the life of a collector.
Oh my God, dude, I've been slowly upgrading to glass cases because that's the only way to go. I hate the dust; it kills me.
Yeah, that's part of my plan too. I've been looking at obviously the Detolf shells at IKEA are great, but they're smaller. I've been looking at trying to figure out how to get some display cases or some glass shells. It's just they're heavier, they're harder to come by, and all that stuff.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. I've gotten some good deals though locally through Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. Where locally I get secondhand display cases. Yeah,
if stores close down, like small retail shops, and they're just trying to get rid of that stuff, you show up with a pickup truck, you might get 3 or 4 nice display cases for $150 or something.
Oh, easy. I've steered away from the countertop displays just because that means I have to drill holes of racks above them to get some space back, Yep. But I've luckily gotten some like good deals on wider with the glass sliding doors, display cases. Yeah. So they're a bitch to get in the house. I've done it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The determination you have as a collect, I can barely lift a bag of cat food, but I'll get that 200-pound shelf into the toy room. That's gonna happen.
Dude, as a collector, it's funny when it comes to like what you'll spend your money on. Mm-hmm. I won't spend $30 to replace my dry wiper blades on my car.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah,
that's too much work.
I've never met a toy collector who didn't have squeaky blades.
It's because I'd rather spend $500 on a prototype than $30 on my blades. And it's just the mentality is just nuts.
Right.
Priorities.
So what we'll do is we'll wrap it up here, but I want to have you on again soon to kind of keep the toy conversations going. I want to hear I want to hear about new projects you're working on, new things you're looking for. Maybe we can make this a semi-regular thing because I think a lot of our listening audience here, Yes Have Some, has very common interests. They like toys. They like talking about them. And we got down to the nitty gritty. So I thought this was good. Real quick though, before I ask you to plug yourself away again and tell everybody where they can find you, what's your holy grail? What's the thing that you're looking for, toy wise or collector wise, that you haven't come across yet, that you might never come across? Because it's interesting when I ask that, because the real Ghostbusters pilot reel is kind of a holy grail, maybe the holy grail, but you didn't know you were looking for it. So what's something maybe you've always dreamed about that if maybe somebody listening might just have in their basement ready to send your way?
If I have two things on my list. One I think is obtainable, is it just needs to show up. The other one, I know it exists out there. I know a few owners of it, but with the way the market is in 2018, if it was 2005, I could probably do it, but not today as far as the market is going. So we all would love the Egon's Lab, right?
Right.
I know a few owners of prototypes for it, but
how many
the
are
market?
Out there?
There's at least 4 or 5.
Okay.
Known prototypes, and then there's some of the concepts, the ones that were like an idea but didn't change
quite make it right.
Yeah, they changed the whole look of it. There's a few early builds that are out there too. But yeah, this day and age, I just have nothing in trade value, and I have nothing, cash value that I could amount to what some of these other people would offer for it. So,
right.
As far as what's obtainable, so I collect a lot of Ghostbuster merchandise from the UK, like I mentioned, and I would collect, all this miscellaneous stuff from gum wrappers to, backpacks,
Right.
But if I got this one item, I could honestly stop and be happy.
Okay.
And that is the Kenner ectoplasm display box from the stores.
Okay, so this is going to it's a box that holds maybe 24 cans of slime, something like that?
Correct.
Okay.
A real one, I have someone did a reproduction of it.
Okay.
But honestly, I'm originalist. If I can get an original one, that's basically where my interests lie. The problem with these slime can display boxes is that there not a lot out there, not a lot that survived, and then especially with the Ghostbusters one, I had the Ninja Turtle one, but the problem with both of those is that they're 2 pieces. There's the box itself that holds the cans, and then there's a backing slip banner that kind of slides on top. It's like a namer kind of thing.
Right.
And so I've come across once or twice and passed because people wanted $1,000 just for the box. And I'm like, I'm not paying $1,000 if it's not complete.
Right.
It's
also hard when it's a piece of cardboard.
That too. It's one sold for $300 at Chicago Toy Show 3 years ago.
Okay.
And it's but no one knew of me and knew that I wanted one, so they didn't tell me, So
right.
It's just but hopefully, to you listeners out there.
Yes.
Your buddy Bobby.
If anybody out there has an original, we're not talking about reproduction bullshit. We're talking about the original Ghostbusters ectoplasm display box. Both pieces, none of this one-piece stuff. Let us know. We'll get Bobby the information because I'm not going to be able to afford it. Even if you're I want $25, I'm ooh, I don't know, man. Got to pay that water bill still. And then, just out of curiosity, Egon's Lab, if one came up on eBay, are we talking $5,000? Are we talking $2,000? What kind of prices are people going to pay for something like that?
I mean, I've seen some stuff go crazy lately. I mean, I think what's happening is that Star Wars is number one, right?
Right.
For a lot of collectors, and Star Wars is hitting that stratosphere where even some of the avid, longtime collectors can't keep going.
Yeah.
And so
it's got ridiculous. I made the mistake of starting to collect vintage Star Wars in 2018.
Dude, don't do it. Stop. Don't do it.
It's I just bought the complete Return of the Jedi, the Jabba playset with Jabba on his throne and
his throne,
Salacious Crumb, and I think I paid $60 for it, which is fine. But I know for a fact that was a $20 or $25 piece, a couple years ago. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, if you ever, I know you're in Atlanta, correct?
Yep.
Dude, I missed Orlando last time, but next time you're down, dude, I got my whole living room is split between Star Wars and Ninja Turtles, and so I have an entire display case that has all 1977 to 1985 figures for the 3 movies.
Well, I cannot wait to come salivate in your living room.
Dude, weapons and all, and the last 17 coins.
Ooh.
All right?
Power of the Force. I love it.
Dude, I got them when it was still doable, okay?
It's not doable anymore. It really isn't.
No.
It's really not.
Just don't. So my point is, because of that, the collectors are now going into their secondhand lines that they like, but weren't hardcore at first, but they still want to buy shit. They still want to collect stuff, and so what's happening now is they're raising the market on that stuff. So Ghostbusters is hitting that realm where it's like I can't continue. Sometimes it's like, are you kidding me? And so for an Egon's Lab, I mean, 2,000 is cheap.
Right, that's crazy.
2,000 is cheap. I can honestly say, depending on who's looking, because that's what really matters. Is this a private auction or a private backyard deal, black market deal, or is this an eBay auction?
Right.
It all depends. So I think between 5,000 to 10,000 is where it would land.
That's crazy. The best deal I've gotten on anything real Ghostbusters. There's a toy show in Atlanta every March called Toylanta, which has gotten pretty good. It used to be called Joe Lana. It was only a G.I. Joe show. It's kind of expanded. And I picked up a complete Ecto 2 copter with a Fright Features Egon with full tie, no broken tie, and I got it for $15 total. And I was like, I felt like I stole the show because the stuff's just skyrocketing. And I already have an Ecto. I didn't need it, but I wasn't gonna, because I know 3 years from now that could be $50 or $60 loose without the box. So I went ahead and picked it up.
Dude, collecting is an art in many ways. I like to, compare it to poker sometimes, especially when you're dealing with a buyer and seller kind of situation.
Right.
Where you're trying to read people,
Yeah. And I think at toy shows, especially local toy shows, it's a little bit easier because, for if you're a full-time toy vendor, you have to keep moving merchandise in order to keep doing what you're doing. And not that I'm advocating going and lowballing these guys who are just trying to make money, but sometimes at the toy shows, I've gotten my best deals on toys at local shows. I've gotten my worst overpriced deals on eBay. So that's just kind of
absolutely
where it's at.
Absolutely. But yeah, so as far as the market goes, I mean, to wrap things up, I mean, it's getting crazy. It's getting to the point where even I'm getting to the point where I'm going to become extinct, or at least it seems that way, but it's like the stock market. Everything fluctuates. It all depends on who's in the game at that moment,
Yeah.
And so there's a few things that I've lost out on that kills me, but there's a few other things that I get for dirt cheap because no one's looking, so.
Right. You just got to you got to be vigilant, and you just got to keep your eye out and never, I mean, we've all dealt with the pain of missing out on an auction that we were watching closely, and then real life got in the way.
Absolutely. And you know what, though? I mean, I hate I can't say anything because you say some people really work hard for their living, and for what they, so if they can afford it, more power to them. But I would rather be outbidded at the last second than
just never be in the game.
Yeah, or be like, what? Oh, crap. I can't tell you how many times I fell asleep. Because there's a late auction and I just fell asleep and I forgot to set my alarm and I forget that the auction was to end that day or whatever and I missed out on it. I would rather miss out on an auction than be bought out of it. Yeah. Like by an enormous amount of money.
Right.
Something that normally goes for I hate people that can just buy the pot is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
They're not even playing. They're not even playing the game. They're just coming in, whipping out the Benjamins and then walking away. I can't. That's not collecting.
We're gonna put an end to it. We're gonna put an end to that. To these people with their money and their free time to outbid us while we fall asleep and wake up to go to work in the morning. Well, listen, man. We've covered a lot of ground. I said we were gonna go 30 or 40 minutes. We're at the 2-hour mark, which I love. I think that folks are really gonna enjoy hearing the story of how you found or came into possession of the real Ghostbusters pilot and how it went from point A to point B. Before we sign off, though, go ahead and plug your sites again so everybody knows where they can find you.
So yeah. Anyone who wants to follow me can do so on Instagram at Bobby_80's, lowercase b. Everything is lowercase. And on Facebook, Bobby's Toy Chest. Those are my two main pages. You can also find me at Bobby80's or at Bobby_80's on Twitter. But Instagram is where you're going to see everything that I get as I get it. And then Bobby's Toy Chest, if you want to hear about my complaining and ranting and you want to join in on the fun, please do so. Cool.
Sounds good. We'll make sure to put up links once we post the episode. And we'll talk to you soon, and we'll catch up. And if you're out there and you've got an Egon's Lab and you're feeling generous and you want to sell it for $100, let Bobby know. He will display it proudly.
Absolutely, and in the ectoplasm box, please.
In the ectoplasm box. Cool. Well, thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon, and happy hunting, as they say.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.